Well, the problem was that I'd spent 5 years developing the technology, borrowing money from the bank, so I already had the maximum overdraft. So in deciding to go into manufacture, I didn't have any money, and I was heavily overdrawn with the bank, so there wasn't a question of me putting any money in. I had to go and try and borrow it. And I went to all the venture capitalists, and this is 1992, which was a not dissimilar situation to now. There was a depression, no one was lending any money, house values were dropping, so it was quite the worst time to start. And I went around all the people who should have lent me some money, helped in startups, and they had two fundamental objections. One is that I was going into manufacturing, and anyone going into manufacturing must be an idiot. And the second point was that I'm not a professional manufacturer. I'm not a professional in the domestic appliance industry. The one I got vaguely interested said, we'll consider giving you the money if you bring in a professional from the industry. And I said, no, I mean, I think the industry is failing in this area. I want to do something completely different. And that person would have no track record of doing something completely different. And I'm passionate about it. I've put a lot of money into it, and I want to do it. So we didn't get anywhere with that. Eventually, I went to a clearing bank, at what we call a high street bank, regular, the person who already owed quite a lot of money to, actually. And they initially said no, and then they appealed to a body within the bank that looks at difficult cases. And they eventually, for some reason, decided to lend me the money, on security of my house, of course. So I had money, but nothing like enough money. But it's quite interesting when you haven't got money. You find cunning ways of doing without it. The second problem I faced was actually getting my vacuum cleaner into the shops, because the retailers said, well, you've got no brand name, who on earth are you? It's a very strange looking thing, you can see the dust, nobody wants to buy this. But actually, if you go around the retailers, just occasionally you can find one who wants to do something different and wants to take a risk. And the encouraging thing is that as I've gone to each market, starting in Britain and America, you find that you have the same problem with the retailers, who, by the way, are wonderful people, so this is not a tirade against retailers at all. You can quite understand their caution. But the wonderful thing is, when it's in there, people start buying it. And boy, that's exciting. But also it shows the willingness of ordinary people to take a risk with a new name and a new product. They'll do that. Yes, I mean, I had 5,126 failures. But no, prototyping, I mean, it sounds tedious, but actually it's incredibly exciting. You build a prototype to test the technology. You don't build the entire vacuum cleaner. You just build the bit of it that you're wanting to test, and you find a simple way of testing it. And then you start building prototypes and making one change at a time, and you start that whole process of discovery, of learning, which is absolutely fascinating. And it makes you the world's expert on that particular thing in a very short space of time, even though you knew nothing about it when you started. Yeah, my very first prototype, just after I'd been to the lumber yard, I rushed home to build a sort of 1 foot high model of the 30 foot high one I'd seen. And I built it in cardboard and gaffer tape, and taped it onto an upright vacuum cleaner and pushed it around, and it appeared to work. So I claim now I was pushing around the world's first bagless vacuum cleaner. I didn't know all the problems at that stage. All I could see was that it appeared to be working. I couldn't see dust flying out of it. I was collecting dust in the bottom of it. So it was a very imperfect vacuum cleaner, but it's the first prototype. Then when I started building my cyclones and making them taller, wider, different angles, different sized exit pipe, different sized entry pipe, and so on, that's when the complication started. My process of making it very, very efficient, and by loading lots of different things into it, different types of dirt, discovering where it worked and where it didn't work. So sometimes at the beginning, the job appears easy, and as you get into it, you suddenly realize what a terrible mess and what a difficult job you've set yourself. But the point then is to get excited, and you get excited because it's a bit like going on a long distance run, and 3/4 of the way through, you wonder if you're going to finish. But Everybody feels like that. And that's the point where you have to accelerate and get to the finishing line. And so it is with inventing. Suddenly you've got a multitude of problems, you haven't got a solution, but you dig down and you get stuck in and you start building prototypes, start trying things out, and suddenly things start to become clearer and you start to get nearer to the end. And because it's difficult, because you are making discoveries all the time, no one's done it before, that's why it's difficult. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be almost impossible. I think the first thing about developing new technology is that it's often very difficult to make new technology better than something that's there already. You may have a gleam in your eye that the new technology will ultimately lead to something much better, but to make it much better than something that's been honed over the years is very difficult. For example, we've got a new technology electric motor that's miles better than the existing electric motors, but it's very expensive to make. So our challenge is to get the cost down. So the process of development, of research and development, so as you build each of these prototypes, you make one change at a time. You've got to be very clear what you're trying to achieve, and you mustn't stop until you've achieved it. It's got to be perfect. And so you're watching each of these variables, you're recording it. You then tend to produce graphs or some form of visual display to try and understand it, because it's not always immediately obvious which bit's working and which bit isn't. And often there's several variables you're looking at. So drawing that graph, the way you subsequently display the results, and then your analysis of that often gives you the clue as to where you should be going. Yes, no, there are stages. There's proof of concept and technology displayed and things like that. They've all established a very good system. I don't quite understand it, but really what you're doing is proving that your technology idea works. And that's probably the most difficult stage. And it's the stage which usually has the most patents attached to it. So that's the first thing. And you, as I say, you don't do that with a complete product. You do it probably with the bit of it that you're inventing. And that prototype doesn't look like the real thing. It doesn't have to be made of the right materials. It just merely has to prove the technology. You then go on, so that's stage one. So I've now got my scientific principle, whatever it is, working. You then try and incorporate that into a product, realizing that other things will happen when you do that. Variables will start to come in. So then you try and produce an entire product in prototype form, probably again not worrying about how it looks or worrying what materials you're making it from. And nowadays we use all these object printers and SLS prototyping, various things, rather than hand building prototypes or even machining prototypes. So we've got lots of fast ways of doing it. So we can get quite quickly to seeing a product, incorporating all the technology and working as a product. We're not too worried about what it looks like at this stage. Okay. So we get that to work, and then we say, well, now how would this be as a complete product if it were injection molded or machined or whatever the manufacturing process is? And that's quite exciting as well. That's another great phase. So you end up with a fully functioning and visually correct prototype. And actually this one I've got here is a good example of that. That's not produced on production tooling. This is all rapid prototyping, this entire product. But I can put it on a test course. I can get people to try it at home. So it will perform and behave exactly like the manufactured product. You want to get rid of your problems before you've tooled up, because once you've tooled up and you've produced the tooled up model, you can't make any changes. So you've got to get it right on the prototype. So this is a really, really critical phase, and you've got to listen to and go and see how it's used in the home. You've got to beat it to death on the user course. And then you discover what's wrong with it, and there'll be lots and lots of things wrong with it. And you then make those modifications still in rapid prototyping. And then you go and test them again. And there may be 3, 4, 5 stages to that. And only when you're absolutely certain you've got rid of all the problems, the technology works, the product works, it doesn't break, people like it, only then do you order the very, very expensive tooling to make this type of thing in mass production. Well, Henry VIII invented patents in 1842 or 1482, and he established the 20-year life, and his system really is still in operation today, and it's a very good system if you're an inventor. The important thing is to go straight to a very good patent agent and get the patent really well drafted. And you go at the stage where you've made your technology work. It's no use going earlier, because he'll draft a patent on your idea, which is not yet proven, and then you'll have to file another one when you've proven it, because you'll have changed it. So the important thing is to only go when you've made it work, you've reduced it to practice, and you've got it working, and then go to a good patent agent.